नमस्ते मित्रों, आर्ट टीवी में सभी का स्वागत है। आज के इस एक संवाद के एपिसोड में हम बात करेंगे हमारे देश के बंगाल के एक वरिष्ठ कलाकार अमिताभ सेनगुप्ता जी के साथ। मित्रों, अमिताभ सेनगुप्ता, इनकी जो कला यात्रा है, इन्होंने जो कलाकृतियां रची है, वो इट्स रियली अमेजिंग और बहुत ही सुंदर, बहुत ही खूबसूरत, एक इन डेप्थ फिलोसॉफी, एक थॉट प्रोसेस भरित है वो। तो आज के इस संवाद में हम उनसे जानने की कोशिश करेंगे, उनकी अनुभूति, उनकी एक्सपीरियंसेस, उनकी थॉट प्रोसेस क्या है, उनकी कलाकृति में वो क्या सोचते हैं। इसमें वॉर्म वेलकम अमिताभ सेनगुप्ता जी, आर टीवी में आपका स्वागत है। वॉर्म वेलकम।
थैंक यू वेरी मच।
या दादा, I should say that I'm a fan of your artworks.
Oh, that's great. Flattering for me.
नहीं, आपकी कलाकृति, आपके compositions, the way it presents, it speaks for itself. That's amazing. It's such a myriad, such a various things about lines, forms, colors. There are some writings, scribblings, some very chaotic brush strokes, and then a very smooth, fine brush stroke accompanied by it's a huge drama. It's a huge play, like. So I always find it very interesting. But before I get into the details of your artworks, we all would like to know a bit of your path traveled. How was your journey till now? How did it begin? What were the interesting experiences, Dada?
It's a very uneven journey. You see, my parents entered India as refugee after partition, and I was very small, of course, but then my memory is quite strong. I remember small pictures and the journey, of course, because we lost our home, parental home and all that. Later in India, my father picked up his job and continued as magistrate. So as a government sub-deputy magistrate, he often used to get transferred from place to place. So my childhood was all over the places in Bengal. I mean, if I start, my memory is strong right after entering North Bengal. That was Jalpaiguri, then Shiliguri, then we shifted to Bashirhat. And like this journey started, we never had home. In fact, my father retired penniless, supporting all our relatives. And I remember my house full of refugee relatives and assorted group. And there are not many children, but I was sort of lonesome, and I had all that. So we were never a very well-off family. We never had the luxury of high life and all those. Though Baba used to be a member of the club, he used to go to club, and he had high officer circles, theater, and all those things. This is one. Shifting from place to place and not having an identity of belonging to a place or a house is in my psyche. I'm habituated, is the now. I moved. I finished my schooling. Again, we came back to North Bengal. Raiganj, Tufanganj. Finally, from Jenkins School, I finished my. Those days were the school final, and then I entered college in Kuchbehar itself, Victoria College those days. The name is changed. All names are changed. I finished in science, ISC. Now,
Mm-hmm.
it was from there my entry into art college. I came to Calcutta, entered Government College of Art and Crafts. And
Mm-hmm.
that was 1958 or 59, something like that. I
Okay.
graduated in 1963.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Actually, you talked about my variations in my artworks. Now, you know, I have to tell this art college is a kind of love and hate situation.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I was poor. I was living in a semi-slum area, and going to art college was a very different, a colonial building,
Mm-hmm.
museum. It was inside the museum, a part of that, and classrooms were built with the British. There was no straight windows below. There was a skylight, so the windows were up
Mm-hmm.
towards the ceiling, and those easels, then models, then those antiques plasters. Uh, these were uh, actually very different from my society, from my life, from my pre-experience,
Mm-hmm.
and then our class was also a very mixed group, very high society girls. They used to come by car those days,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't speak English, neither Hindi, and I was a uh, very
Introvert,
person
shy.
in introvert, staying in the shadows and doing my job.
Mm-hmm.
Now, uh, right from the first exam, I started getting scholarship for merit, and I was first all through. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and high result and all sort of awards and scholarships. When I was in the third year, I got the Academy of Fine Arts Award,
Uh-huh.
and
Okay.
so uh, people of course noticed me, and then somehow I didn't get along with my teachers well, because
Mm-hmm.
uh, you see, they all talked about Western art. Art
Mm-hmm.
meant Rembrandt, Picasso, Dali, or Renaissance. And we never heard about indigenous language of art.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, During my time, Nandalal, Ramking, Karbej, they were alive, and they were never invited to come and visit Government College of Art, come to
Oh, okay.
class. And I didn't know even that what was happening in Shantiniketan, what sort of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So we were merged into Western psyche of art to become Western like. And then those days in our course, there were very little theoretical studies, but a lot of popular scholars, professors, and visitors from abroad, mostly Americans and British. They
Mm-hmm.
used to give us talks. And so about Indian art, whatever it is, that was those slide talks. And those talks never impressed me, frankly, uh, because even though they were very popular scholars of Calcutta universities and all that, they uh, somehow I felt these people, they are
Mm-hmm.
not viewer of art. They are sticking on to the information. That's all.
Okay.
And now, uh, I when I left art college, Uh, well, I did a sting with Calcutta University with the art history course and all that. So I left Calcutta. That was 1963 end.
Okay.
I went to Delhi because those days there was no job in Calcutta, and neither many art galleries or any school, anything. So to find life, to get into the profession, I went to Delhi, but there were another reason going to Delhi because I wanted to forget art college
Okay.
because I felt the whole environment, whole education uh, is not compatible to my environment because it's not my environment. I'm trying to adapt something else. And in the process, I really lost myself. So I left Calcutta, I went to Delhi, and I stopped doing sort of things that realism, academicism, anything like that. I picked up old uh, plyboards, used pigments, enamel color, or whatever house painting colors, and all sort of things. Those days, those Fevicol hasn't come yet. There were different kind of resin gums. So a kind of rugged surface I used to make, and there I used to write. And those days, this is how inscriptions came as a protest, as a inner feeling to express, like writing my diary. I always used to write diary anyway. Now, this boards, whatever it is, uh, it was writing that I'm looking for a job, situation vacant, that I didn't get a job in an interview, and all those things I'm writing, and some pet things, ideas about art, which were very haphazard, and history was rather vague. And so uh, a kind of mixed quest, protest, anger. And when my first exhibition I had at IFAX in Delhi, uh, uh, Charles Fabry was a very known critic in the Statesman. And my friends and all that, I mean, people around, uh, they were amused looking at my works because well, friends thought that I was doing a gimmick sort of things. I want to become popular, etc., etc. Or I forgot my drawings or something. Charles probably made a very interesting comment that playing with art, Amitabh is playing with art. We don't know where he will go. And when criticism was the most, uh, I mean, the media expressions, it was Dilip Bimal Dasgupta, a senior artist those days. He came to see my work, and suddenly he asked me, "Have you seen Panikkar?" Well, in '64, there was no TV, there was no art journal or talk about artists and all that, but it was at the Lalit Kala Center we used to hear about prominent artists of India. So I told him that I heard his name, but I don't know his work. And sooner, in one of the national exhibitions, there came Panikkar's, those huge paintings with scripts. And suddenly I had a feeling that after all, I'm not a nuisance. I have maybe a rugged way, but I'm working on it.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1966, I received French government scholarships. I went to Paris, and there I continued writing. And another aspect was that I discovered beautiful paper. In France, they have so many materials, medium, and all sort of things, gouache, pigments, and so I was just from this to that, and paper attracted me, those beautiful textures. So with transparent watercolor, with minimal lines and wash, leaving the paper surface, I started writing. So writing this time, not too much. It's only some words which has no meaning, or it may have a meaning, or a little. I mean, it is all in Bengali,
Mm-hmm.
and my professor was very much impressed with that, and he liked. And in fact, I got the solo show in the École de Beaux-Arts selection.
Uh-huh. Okay. And that was in which year, Dada?
66. I mean, it was just before uh, 67 must be, because I went to Paris in 1966 till
Mm-hmm.
70. Now, in between, the student revolt, which is the Spring Revolt, and that started, and mm, I mean, just before that, and after that revolt session, we got back to work, and I had several exhibitions. And my script and line, uh, that was the time, went on. So in 70, when I was returning home in Calcutta,
Mm-hmm.
you can imagine, my mind was full of inspirations, ideas, and the eagerness to have a studio and start working. But that
Lovely.
never happened.
Oh, so if at all you, what I get from your path travel till now, in your childhood, it was sort of a rebel thing, I think, because you're always moving and you had that refugee type feeling, moving from places to places. In college, you see the academicians going in one way, whereas your observations and your instincts, your creativity said in something else. When you came out as an artist, when you went to Delhi, you saw the whole world moving in one way, whereas your idea was in some other way. Now, how did you bridge this? There was a gap between what you wanted and what the world goes like. How did you try to bridge this?
Actually, it's not that simple, because uh, you have to remember the context of time. 60s,
Mm-hmm.
there was not much information. It was all Picasso, Dali,
Yeah.
Rembrandt, and those glossy books. But there were not many journals, books, or images, because these are all library things. And I didn't know much about the world, because I didn't see in Academy of Fine Arts in Calcutta, the annual exhibitions were very important for us, because we
Mm-hmm.
used to see works from all over India, and most of the prominent artists, they used to participate. So
Mm-hmm.
that exhibition was one kind of guide that what is going on in India. And then I remember Santosh came to Calcutta and had a show in one of the galleries, and seeing
D.R.
his
Santosh.
work, yes, and
Uh,
seeing his work was another experience. And
Mm-hmm.
then going to Delhi, uh, Academy of Fine, I mean National, I mean Lalit Kala was those days Lalit Kala was a prominent center of art, and there
Mm-hmm.
were very few galleries, Dhumi Mall and Kumars and all that, and in Triveni there was one gallery run by I think Keko Gandhi, operated by Roshan Al-Kazi. And so these are few galleries. But Lalit Kala was the center. I mean, always we used to be there, observing exhibitions and this, that, all sort of things. And I did not have a judgment about what is happening really, just viewing, and I exploring, and I didn't know what is good art or bad art or something, because good art or bad art was defined into Western art or failure of Western art. So uh, I mean, any and modern art those days was a kind of vague idea that breaking the form with linearity, strong linearity, splash of color, uh, sort of that was modern art. So
Mm-hmm.
we were not seeing the actual Western art or the new waves or things like that. I didn't see Picasso or Dali or anything Western art except in a printed page. But I was main concern for me in my mind was to get away from this format, to get away. I don't know what is happening because I didn't have any judgment about it. But few things which I was seeing, uh, I liked some canvas, uh, but not all canvases of the same artist. And in fact, I used to look at paintings to get inspiration. I didn't know how to observe the painting because art college didn't teach us how to see art, but produce art. And that's one of the reasons that we don't have art audience or visual literacy in Indian education. Because many of the artists, even the professors in the art colleges, they used to talk very conflicting statements about modern art or new art or Indian art or Western art. I mean, this whatever it is. So they were all kind of mixed with the wrong information about history, values, cultural values, and all that. And I used to hate it, in fact, because in my college days I used to write diary, and I was reading Ruskin those days, and
Mm-hmm.
Ruskin, though he was highly criticized because of it, but then Ruskin was one. He gave me a sort of starting logic, rationalizing things, observing sort of things. And years later, I got Lowenbro, How to See Art, and that was another phase. But up till Delhi, before going to Paris, it was I must say I was uneducated, uh, and I knew I was very smart in realistic work. You remember, uh, you can put us into the time frame that Vikas Bhattacharya,
Mm-hmm.
he was my same year. So it was those days that we were eager to do high realism, and high
Mm-hmm.
realism became our language. And coming to Delhi, I wanted to get away from that high realism because I used to do very high realism in Calcutta. But then I wanted to stop it. I wanted to get, I suddenly feel that I may have subjects, images of Indian and all that, but with all that high realism, it doesn't make sense. So I was
So,
searching, I was uneducated, I was less informed, I was seeing less, but of course, I was hungry and angry as well.
So in one way, if at all you say like you were uneducated or you had no information, you had not seen, but I think today when you look back and see, maybe you are not touched by any of the impurities or any of the I mean your mind, you had, it was as clean and safe as a clay and not touched by any manipulations. Like, so would you think that?
Yes, it was only manipulation in the art college, but never again.
In like.
Because in Paris, professors never manipulated me.
Mhm.
Uh, Even my experience in US, it was all self-exploration. Uh, so education is very different outside India.
Yeah, yeah, true, true, true. Dada, when I look at your artworks, like the first thing that draws attention is, I mean, apart from colors, is the way how the composition goes. There are so many compartments. It can be vertical, horizontal, or something. How do you now? What do those? Why those compartments? I mean, is it because your when you look back at your life, you had a lot of compartments in your life in terms of thought process, in terms of thinking, experiences? Or would you like to signify that, or does it have any other things? Like, how is that compartments happening? Why is that happening?
Well, it's actually none of these. Uh, it's a kind of flowing into the different zone. Again, I have to go back to the introspection that, in Paris, as I said, my watercolors were very minimal. The soft lines and the colors, and then script as a form.
Yep.
And then another influence was visiting the museums. One of the things that I visited Musée Guimet uh, and many other places, the Asian art especially, uh, I found there is grit.
Mm-hmm.
Many of these works in Oriental art, there is a linear grid. There is a sort of border on the side and paneling as you see the temples and all those things.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Horizontal or vertical. This is typical. First, I observed in the visiting the museums and those even in the Japanese works in Musée Guimet, I saw there is breaking the panel. They subtle create scenes, landscaping, and then they break that the definition with crossing a form, a sort of
Mm-hmm.
human form or anything, or a bird or something. Now, uh, this was telltale feeling in me. But then, as I said, when I was coming back from Paris, my mind was full of ideas, full of inspirations to work, study, and have a good studio and uh, all that. But when I came back to 1970, Indian economy and political situation was in turmoil. Naxalite period and all sort of things. So
Yep.
I had to move away from uh, Calcutta and then shifted to Delhi. I mean, shifted to South Chennai, Chennai to Delhi, and I never got a job really. In fact, I was sacked once and twice, I guess, and thrice before I got sacked, I resigned.
Okay.
And then, uh, in meanwhile, Al-Qazi was one very crucial in my life.
Mm-hmm.
He saw uh, I mean, those days I was financially very poor. So I couldn't buy large canvases, lot of paints or anything. And I was in the advertising studio as art director and a lot of responsibility. And I used to leave home at 7 o'clock, return by 9 o'clock, and sit after having dinner and wash and all that. I used to sit with my paperwork. I used to work those days on paper. So I had a show, uh, and I had some photographic experiments those days. Since in the advertising, we used to use a lot of photographs. So what I did, I structured some with assorted objects, small things, hung on the row, and uh, I put the camera light behind, so it became sort of shadowed, very dark. And I took the photograph, and those photographs I put it, and then in front of it I hung those structures. So there is a correlation between the shadowed shape and the actual form. And then the series of watercolors. Alkazi was the one, he was very enthusiastic. And those days he was not directly involved with gallery, but his wife was running galleries. And he introduced me, and that was my entry to galleries in Delhi. But
Okay.
then, uh, well, things were moving quite fast, and Roshan wanted more paintings, more works, regular participations, which I failed because of my time, my money, and all that. And then at a point, I told my wife, look, I am leaving India. Whatever happens. Meanwhile, I have already applied to US universities to do my master's, and I got a chance in the Pratt. So I thought I will leave India, but that too didn't happen because US embassy stopped my visa. They didn't
Mm.
give me visa.
And the reason?
Because the reason I'm a potential immigrant,
Ah.
financial liability, all sort of things, because I didn't have enough fund. But then I had a sort of assistantship in the Prat, which could give me some money and I could manage. But anyway, it didn't happen, and U.S. embassy, it was very shocking for me. So my friends from Paris, they sent me a ticket, and somehow, it was a lot of drama because that was the emergency period of
I
Indira
know.
Gandhi,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
also a lot of bad reputation of Bengal, and especially young men from Bengal in 70s, a sort of Naxal smell. So anyway, though I didn't have anything to do with Naxal, I didn't know about the movement because I was abroad that period, but it carried a kind of indirect smell on me. And I went to Paris without job, without anything, and stayed on. And then I was very lucky. I met somebody from the UNESCO. He suggested that there is a post in Nigeria if I were
Mm-hmm.
interested. So of course I was interested. I never taught any school or university or anything. I didn't know anything about teaching. So, but he said that there is a project that UNESCO is supporting, and he was in charge. So he will forward my applications, but certainly I will get a call. But if I'm selected in the interview, so it's my point. So anyway, interview came. I went to Nigeria. I had the interview. It was fantastic. The best interview I ever had, and the first job I got, a real job, a lecturership uh, in the Alvanikugu College, which was under the University of Nigeria, and Chinua Achebe just retired that time. but he was off and on and around, and he was giving lectures that I met all those scholars. I mean, my world opened up very much. Now, about art, you remember, I mean, as I was pointing out, between 70 and 76, since I didn't have a settlement time and studio, I was not able to do proper painting, large paintings. It was only linear works, watercolors, drawings, experiments with assorted things, small canvases. But mine was very much frustrated.
Looking for a larger canvas.
And proper space, studio. And that happened after all these years in 1977 in Nigeria, because I got a huge bungalow and enough space, and the money was, of course, unimaginable for me. And so first thing I did, I traveled to Europe and once again gone through the museums, old and new and all that, and bought my art materials and returned. So that was another phase. But then that inscriptions, whatever you say, or the linearity, it didn't continue because I'm out of touch. I mean, that because of my events and all that, I mean, I'm totally out of touch. And also in Nigeria, I was watching those fantastic traditional sculptures, the wood assorted metal things and all that. I mean, incredible artistic forms, because I was doing research and all that, and I was visiting a lot of villages.
How many years you were in Nigeria?
11 years.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, and in between, I finished my master's in US, not in Prague, but Sunnyvale. So,
Dada, when sorry, you were saying something. Sorry.
Nigeria was the phase, I can say, that gave me settlement, and then I started watching, studying, and seeing the world. You can say that I was opening up to the world, and also I had the mentorship of some fantastic people like Ola Rotimi. Ola Rotimi was the most prominent theater person in Nigeria those days, and highly educated. His wife was an American. She was in my department. And then all the scholars, writers, poets, they were all, attached to the university. And I used to listen to their talks. And then university was a space where international scholars used to visit. So I met some West Indian scholars, which is impossible in India. And in fact, from them, I came to know about the history of Indian indentured labor and all those in the Caribbean area, Suriname, and all those. And they gave me some historical books. And see, world was very different there. And in fact, in university life, I started reading about Amartya Sen, and many of my fellow colleagues told me that he might get Nobel Award. I mean, this I'm talking long before he actually got it. So Amartya Sen, I was reading many of the Shivnaran Rai and all those Indian scholars. I was revisiting through my university.
Excellent. Dada, another aspect of your painting which fascinates me or which intrigues me is the lines. The 2-3 characteristics which I observe is your lines no doubt they are rebellious. It's a rebel. Second one, it's so strong that it has an announcement. But in spite of these, they are still, what do you say, they are humble. So, there's a nice paradox, which is where it's quite strong and rebellious, but at the same time humble. Now, can you talk something about your lines? Which
Yeah,
it may
yeah,
be
that's
haphazard lines, it may be straight lines, it may be throwing lines, anything.
yeah, that's right. It's very
Paradoxical
uh,
line.
it's a very crucial change. Uh, it happened first when I returned to India in 1988. Uh, my first uh, mm, thing was to understand the indigenous, the folk. See, as I said, my interest in folk developed in Europe, America, and Nigerian life because
Hmm.
in Nigeria, the folk, I mean, just a strong language. Uh, it's a timeless language. And so when I came back, I was looking to study folk, and I found that Potachitro in Midnapur, the Potuas, I got in touch with them, and a new journey started. And also, I uh, traveled all over India just since, again, I didn't get a job in India, so I was a free man. And Prakash Kumar used to tease me that I'm a full timer. So, like that, mm, well, I didn't have financial worry in this time. So, I was traveling all over India, watching the Havelis, the forts, these, that, heritage structures and temples. I mean, almost all those things. I was trying to gather my mood and anything. So it was during this process, actually, Indian, if you see uh, the folk lines uh, everywhere. I mean, you see in the south, in the north, in Rajasthan, or in Bengal, or anywhere in Nepal. Uh, it's a line is the final structure, and
Yeah.
then in Indian indigenous language, the line is very static. It's hardly moving, but color sometimes moving, like tantric form. You can say
Hmm.
the tantric form, the patch of color and those. But again, the structure, the diagram, the mandala, it is very static. And
Hmm.
similarly, in Nepal, all those tantric human form, I mean, I saw that after laying the colors, the defining the form with line makes it static. So the whole form is no more moving. I took this structural theory,
Hmm.
uh, the structure bit, but then I wanted a freedom. I started throwing color and line. Of course, I do not give hardly give with brush. I have a kind of nozzle bottle filled with color, and I start scratching it over, throwing it, dripping it, staining it,
Hmm.
and like that. So it grows. I mean, I never have a plan now what I'm going to do, but it kind of mood is there, that inscriptions or things, sort of thing. When I'm doing a series of works, so, I mean, continuously, so I know
Hmm.
this is the mood. So line is extremely important now for me, because this is also a way of getting away from Western tonal academicism, and
Hmm.
and uh, but then in Europe and America both, I have seen artists highly inspired by Oriental trends. the linearity of folk art, the
Mm-hmm.
linearity of many of the traditional art that's not in their country. And they're trying to adopt that as an experiment. And some of my friends are doing very good, I mean, different works anyway. But I also didn't want to do like Panikkar, the lines with thin brush, moving very sensitively, very
Mm-hmm.
defined. I mean, defining the space and uh, uh, mm, defining the area and all that. And as I understand, his scripts are readable sometimes. And then I thought that meanwhile, I have been studying, I mean, as a form, all those old scripts, Pali, Brahmi, and Chinese, uh,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all those historical lipis and all those we got. And then not to study history, I was studying as a form.
Mm-hmm.
And my early sketchbook is filled up the scribbling with these forms and all that. And in the initially, when I was doing the inscription series, I used to use a real Pali or Brahmi or something Hindi or Bengali form as
Mm-hmm.
authentic, but no definite word or sentence. So just the script. But then it started minimizing that sometimes the Pali or Brahmi form as a major form. Then I started doing my own scripting, which has no, I mean, just innovation and as a textual space. So script has become a spontaneous part of me. Uh, if I have used anywhere any Pali or Brahmi, I must say now I don't know because my hand moves so fast, many things start. And because this speed, as if uh, I want to pour out my mind, my mood on the canvas. So that's how. And another reason that I also don't use conventional material. I mix material with odd things,
Mm-hmm.
spray, metallic colors, pigments. Um, I haven't used structures yet, but I did few. I mean, but those are all lost. So this linearity uh, and tonal with the overlapping colors. Uh, so this is my process now.
Do you work on a particular series or something, like in the sense you take up a subject and you work till you drain out, or how is usually a body of work goes about?
Somewhat like that, uh, because uh, when I came to India and I was going around, there are two observations: was the heritage buildings and the cities. And the cities, they look very different from Europe or Africa. Well,
Mm-hmm.
Africa cities, uh, prototype European, I must say,
Mm-hmm.
but closer to India in haphazard look. But then uh, walls and those structures attracted. I did a series of wall series and then interiors. Then I shifted to midscape, which were rather realistic representational works. And slowly then I shifted back to my uh, mm, scripts. Scripts merged from 2000 onwards. And yes, when I have a sort of subject or theme, I go on doing canvases until, because each canvas tell me that I mean it gives me the idea of the next canvas. So I start the other one, and like this it goes on, and certain effects, certain uh, way I have expressed, I I want to change it, so I do another one. So within a theme, I go on doing like that. But as I said, I travel a lot. I often go to South and stay there, and that leaves a kind of mm, sort of effect, environmental effect. Now I'm not living in any city. I'm living in a sort of village, forest area, doors,
Mhm.
rainforest, and
Mhm.
it's very beautiful with rivers and the climate uh, uh, and the life, I must say, far from modernism. And
Mhm.
but then I got a space somehow. It is quite an accident. I got a space, and after all these years, I really have a studio in India.
Excellent, Dada. Excellent. So finally, we can expect that a huge body of work is going to come out from that studio now. So,
But remember,
what are,
I'm
what are you
82.
working now? Sorry. What are
I'm
you working?
I'm working on jungle series, the
Uh-huh.
forest jungle series. I
Okay.
call it jungle. And now it may be forest, it may be arid land, just surface, and it is very abstracted. And it is a kind of mixture of my throwing color, doodling these, that, not script, but linearity is there in a subtle way on
So
certain
it's going to be
spaces.
quite different from your previous series.
It is. It is.
Uh-huh. That is
Uh,
that is interesting now. That is
because
interesting.
when you see my works, you will observe the journey from high realism to uh, inscriptions, and then again another phase of abstractions. Because inscriptions were more symbolic,
Mm-hmm.
structural
Mm-hmm.
somehow. Here also structure is there, but sometimes it's more about the tones, because in jungle, from morning till night, I see so many tones, and the green is not always the same green. The
True.
the crop fields are not always the same color. There are wildflowers, so colors are very subtle, all mixed in a very subdued forest.
Yeah.
Uh, but I'm not using the animal forms yet, though there are so many animals around.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I haven't used it, uh, but it's in my mind, because I'm not getting into the mood of creating a living form, human or animal or anything. Even a tree, realistic tree, I am not doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's only the sensation or the sensing the jungle feeling.
Awesome, Dada. Awesome. We all will wait for it and would be very curious to see your new series, Dada.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. I think I've taken a lot of time of yours, and it was a nice talk, a nice interaction with you, Dada. I still have a lot to talk to you, but we definitely will catch up once again to know more about your jungle experiences.
Most welcome.
Yeah. Thank you very much,
Okay.
Dada. Thank you very much for being and sharing your experiences with us. Yeah. Friends, I believe that you find this interview with Amitabh Sengupta interesting. Definitely a huge body of work, a huge, an entire life of experience at different places, space, time, thought process, and art. Do let us know what you think about this. Do like, share, comment, and subscribe Art TV. And thank you very much. Dada, thank you very much for being with us once again.
Thank you.